And the reason these things are important, again, it all goes back to what we were talking about, facing the truth head on. And I think that if you're going to run an organization, and we can talk about that, but go ahead.
So, in terms of the Robert Kennedy quelling the frustration when every other city went out in riots, you spoke about how trust is important with that. In a lot of organizations, obviously, there's a lot of mistrust of, clearly of other people, other businesses, and so forth, and that's fine. It's competition, but internally, people are very concerned with their own selves, their own position. Things have become very political from the standpoint of you tell one person one thing, you tell one person another thing. If you watch House of Cards, that is the epitome of that.
Sure.
And I think that when people learn how to trust each other more, you have more cohesion and so forth. And it's not necessarily normal to do in the same way RFK's advisors told him not to do such,
Yes.
because it's not safe as such. It's not normal.
Yes.
And I think that actually that's not a good thing, that it's not normal to operate with truth and trust.
No, again, it goes back to everything we were talking about. It's a reflex not to operate, and you got to fight that every day. Now, again, I suggest very strongly to whoever's listening to us or watching us talk about this, they should pick up the book, Good to Great. This is the first time that I have seen all these ideas that we are talking about put in a very scientific, organized approach to the problem, which is important because you can talk about these things, and if you know the answers, it's clear. If you don't know the answers, it's chaotic.
Well, you struggle and you wonder, you throw your hands in the air wondering why things aren't working, and people can go their whole life like that.
Yes. So if you pick up that book and if
you
read that book, you'll see, and everyone else, that what these guys did is they asked a very simple question. And the question was, what makes a company great? So take the company, change the word to what makes your life great, what makes your organization great, what makes a country great. So whatever you want, just plug it in. What's greatness? And how do you get to the greatness? And because they were economics people, they looked at companies. And it's interesting that, again, I don't mean to go over the whole book, but if I recall, they looked at 2,500 companies, which were always in the Fortune list of being great companies in America and so forth, or successful companies. And then they said, we're going to put some standards for greatness that are going to be so outside the reach of most people. Mm-hmm. These are going to be so high. It's sort of like, you and I want to go to the Olympics or something, So if to run the mile, you got to run it below 4 minutes, or you're not even going to be there. You see, that kind of thing. So and I don't remember all the details, but they were very, very rigorous rules for what would define greatness in terms of the accomplishments of the company from a financial standpoint.
Well, I will say also the only thing that people are interested in watching or learning from are the great ones. For example, pro tennis. I'm sure there are thousands of pro tennis players out there. The top 4 or 5 get all of the financial spoils, most of them, and then the top 20, top 50, top 100, they do well enough. After that, it's nothing.
Right.
And that because those top people are the people that people come to watch. With the Olympics too, we see these few people. How many millions train with the dream of being an Olympic athlete and don't make it?
Absolutely. And again, how many companies start every year and don't make it, that kind of thing. But the point is that the things that came out with, so out of the 25 some hundred companies, they picked 11. Pretty rigorous. And these 11 companies were they then said, okay, so if they're going to perform in this very exceptional way based on stock market numbers, et cetera, what made them? What's the common theme that goes across these 11 companies? And they boiled it down to certain things. And frankly, my team, my organization, my personal life has been running on those parameters since 1999. And every time I deal with issues, I look at it through the lens, and we call it the Bible, which is really this book. And you can read it like on a plane and put it aside as an interesting read, but you can also delve into it just like you would delve into a Bible, where you can read every verse and understand what it's meant to be and so forth. What they did is the first thing that they decided was important for these companies to reach greatness was leadership. Now, we talk about leadership all the time, right? Leader this, everybody's a leader these days. Their courses, et cetera, et cetera. But they defined 5 levels of leadership. And these 11 all had level 5 leadership. So level 5 leadership is not easy to attain. And they defined each level a certain way. But the level 5 leader was not a leader who was trying to make the company great. He was not trying to look for stock market performance, et cetera, et cetera. He was the guy or the woman who felt that his success came from the success of the people in the company. Not the success of the company, the people in the company. Very unusual. You see? For example, read, and I'm not trying to pick on one person or another, but these days you read about all these horrendous things with airlines. The dog dies and person is not put on the plane and all this other stuff, right? And I'm sure they're very good at flying the planes. It's not because, it's relatively safe and everything. But you can just see that the leader of these companies is not taking care of his people or her people.
Is it possible that they are and that certain things slip through the cracks?
No, it can't be that prevalent. Because if they were, the example we spoke about a few minutes or a few minutes, hours ago, whatever it was, about the woman trying to get on the plane, if the CEO of that airline cared for his or her worker, that worker would have ownership. That worker wouldn't be just a worker.
Passing the buck.
Passing the buck.
Yeah.
This is my airline. How can I let one of my customers feel so bad? I mean, it's unbelievable, right? Because the person leading the company doesn't see his success in the success of his people,
right?
They're expendable.
Well, someone told me once also, if you want to know how good a company is, look no further than the leader. And I said to the rank and file worker, the leader is so many steps away. It's almost like it doesn't matter. And what this guy said is, well, the rank and file worker's boss was hired by someone, who's hired by someone, who's hired by someone, who's hired by someone, who's hired by the leader.
Absolutely.
And that sort of culture permeates.
Yes. And if you want to look at a broken organization, a broken family, a broken anything, you find that people don't take responsibility. So if the lowest
like a broken
person,
warehouse.
Like a broken warehouse. So the key is there is no low or high. People are doing different jobs. So this is not the army. But if it was an army, having been there, I can tell you that an army, the success of the army is what? That the soldier takes responsibility for the defense of his country. He's not fighting for the general, he's fighting for his country. You see? So that person at the gate is not a good soldier. And they're not a good soldier not because they're a bad person, but because their generals failed them. You see? And nobody fights for the generals. They fight for their country. So the issue is that the leadership is significant. And the leadership needs to be, again, an active process. It can't be that, I happen to have seniority, experience, but I'm the smartest guy in the company, so I become the leader,